All right, think about it. What if the Earth is actually hollow and inside the Earth lived weird mole people that were just roaming around doing their thing and it was all going on underneath us? Or better yet, what if we were actually living inside of the Earth and when we see stars, it's really just the crust of the Earth? Think about it. How wild would that be? Turns out none of that is true, but it doesn't stop people from thinking that the Earth is actually hollow. And like I said initially, that these mole people live in the Earth. So I'm interested in weird shit and conspiracy theories, so we're gonna break it down because at first, when I heard this theory, I was like, you know what? How cool would that be? What if the Earth is really hollow? But then I dug into it and it kind of makes no sense. So let's dig into it. Let's talk about how this even came to be a thing and the experiments that have proved the Earth is not hollow. Unless you do in fact believe the Earth is still hollow, hit me up. Maybe we'll go check it out. I'm kind of interested and I'm always believe in a good conspiracy theory. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, so for this story, we're gonna travel all the way back to my favorite year ever, 1692. That's actually not my favorite year ever, but my favorite year would probably be the year I was born. And I'm not gonna tell you that year because it would age me. 1692, this astronomer named Edmund Halley came out with a paper and he was like, you know what, guys? I think the Earth is hollow. Without really any evidence whatsoever, he was like, I believe the Earth is hollow, and so it's hollow, and in that, the hollowness of our Earth, there's obviously some weird shit going on. And okay, so Halley believed this was a thing because he started to notice Earth's magnetic field, and he saw that things were shifting, and you know, have you ever heard of like plate tectonics, that it moves underneath us? For instance, like when a volcano erupts or there's an earthquake, Earth shifts. And so he realized that, you know, there's this magnetic field, and because of that, he kind of deduced that he kind of just made this up, you know what I mean? But I love it. I love a good theory, so I'm gonna roll with it. So he basically assumed that there were 3 magnetic circles inside of the Earth that made it hollow, and those magnetic rings, like the magnetism of those is what was holding Earth up, because the magnets kind of like repelled the Earth open, because I guess like instead of gravity, there was holding it open, so these rings were the magnets, and then the Earth was hollow. That was his reasoning. To be honest, I haven't read the book. He probably was like a little more eloquent than me. Like at least I hope he was, but that's the general gist of it in very much layman's terms. So then Halley ran even wilder with this theory, and he basically was like, okay, so because the Earth is hollow and there's these, you know, magnetic spheres holding it up, what would be the point of it? The only point of that would be to house a civilization inside of the Earth. That was his reasoning. So he was like, why not have people down there in the middle of the Earth if it's wide open and being held up by magnetic forces? I think that was like a little bit of a leap, but that's kind of what he was getting at. He fully believed that there were some sort of mole people living underneath or inside of the Earth. And I don't really even know what mole people means. Like, is that literally people who look like moles? Like, I'm assuming you're not getting a lot of vitamin D, if any, so maybe you kind of develop weird features to adapt to the darkness. The whole thing sounds really creepy. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie The Descent. Terrifying. There's also a part 2, also terrifying. I had nightmares for years about that movie, but I still watch it because there's obviously something wrong with me. But essentially, this group of female like cave divers, they descend into the Earth and they kind of realize what Halley was saying. They're like, there's these weird, I guess, mole people creatures that just eat them and kill them, and it's absolutely terrifying. So I think maybe that was in line with his thinking. Maybe he was just like a little far ahead on that movie, and it was his original. Maybe they copied him. Maybe they copied his idea, and that's where they got that for the movie. Your guy, I don't know if it's Halley or Halley, so don't come for me, I apologize. Looks like Halley, but then I'm like, maybe it's Halley. Okay, so let's just say Halley. I guess there's 2 L's. After his, you know, main discovery, if you want to call it that, or theory about the hollow Earth, there were tons of other theories that were popping up, and they got pretty wild. For instance, some people actually believed that the Nazis escaped to the center of the hollow Earth, and they have basically just started up their own civilization down there. That's a really interesting one. And how do you get into the Earth? How do you get in? Is there like a hole? I don't know. I find it very fascinating. People have also believed, and I could do a whole other video on this, that there was this underground kingdom called Agartha inside of the Earth, and it was literally like, it almost looks like an ancient kingdom with like rivers and streams and places to live and like a whole civilization. Yeah, maybe I'll do a video on that in a little bit. That was another one. And again, though, though people are like, okay, I said this earlier, but how are these people getting vitamin D? How are they getting like the proper nutrients? Again, would they be adapting? They'd have to adapt to the environment. So yeah, I'm assuming they would kind of turn into these mole people. Are they communicating with people on Earth? Where are these theories coming from? I feel like people just think something crazy and they're like, you know what? Yes, that's it. And I'm going to put that on the internet and I'm going to run with it. I'm going to tell everyone that that is correct, even though I have no idea if it's correct. And if you challenge me, I'm going to come for you. I feel like that's like the mindset, especially today. Unfortunately though, I kind of said this up front, but all of these theories have been disproved. I don't think there's any mole people in the center of the Earth. I don't necessarily even think that Earth is hollow. They have since found that, based actually on when there's earthquakes and volcanoes and other things scientists can measure, they have found that the interior of the Earth is in fact very dense, very, very dense, not really any hollowness. I think none of that is what's going on. Even though Edmund Halley, I give him a lot of props for presenting this theory. It's very interesting. I kind of still want to believe it because it's cool. Like, how cool would that be if there's literally like an underground civilization inside of the Earth? But then, you know, my critical thinking comes on. It's like,
nah, it's not. There's just not. I don't think there is.
We know for a fact today the Earth is not hollow, but the first experiment to prove that it was not hollow was conducted in 1774 when scientists actually used a mountain in Scotland to calculate the density of the Earth. So today, obviously, we have more tools to figure this out than we did in 1774. But even back then, they noticed how dense the interior of the Earth was, and they were like, nah, it's not hollow. It's not. But people kept running with this theory, so it still has to be talked about today because people won't let it go. So this is how they figured it out. Andrew Campbell, who's a professor of geophysics at the University of Chicago, he recently explained that what they figured out is that the density interior of the Earth is a lot higher than that of the material on the crust of the Earth. Okay, so like I said, the way that they can figure this out now and know for sure is that earthquakes, when they happen, they are sending out waves of energy in all different directions, and scientists are able to measure the tremors that are put off from these earthquakes, which is pretty cool if you think about it. And they can measure it, and they've been able to, from measuring those, they've been able to actually map out the interior of the Earth. And there's really not much going on down there. They said there's maybe a little bit of water, a bunch of rocks, but besides that, no civilization. So they can scientifically prove that your guy, Edmund, he was incorrect. But at the same time, it was 1600s. He didn't have the technology we do today, so I'm not going to fault him. Despite all this though, like I said, people have not given this up. And in 2007, a man who he was an author of a Hollow Earth Theory book. He actually wanted to go to the North Pole and try to see if the Earth was hollow. I guess he assumed that the entrance to get down into the Earth would be through the North Pole. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes on at the North Pole, in my opinion, but he thought that if he went to North Pole, he could figure it out himself. But sadly, I don't know why the trip was canceled, and so he never officially checked it out. But if any of you happen to know, if you've ever tried to go down into the interior of the Earth and you've seen some mole people, let me know. Leave me a comment, email me. I'm dying to know. But for now, I think we can firmly say the Earth is not hollow. All right, see you guys soon.